welcome to episode number 022 of Something Else with Arya and not KJ. I am Arya, joined by not KJ, and today we're going to be discussing Mid South Wrestling from February 18th, 1982. We're also going to talk about fire breathing demons later on at the end of the show. And we're also going to talk about Jay Briscoe, who, as we all know by now, passed away last Tuesday. But first, I want to welcome everyone to the show. Thank you all for listening on whatever streaming site you use, whether it's angrymarks.com, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Castbox, Overcast, Pod Paradise, Castro, Podbay.fm, Radio Public, and apparently our brand new place you can hear us, Pocket Casts. Again, apparently all these places are real places, and you can listen to us there. Wherever it is, please subscribe. Please give us a 5-star review. Like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Because you know something? If this was your podcast, I would like and subscribe to yours. I don't see what the big deal is here, people. Just press the little button that says like. I will approve it. Alrighty. So let's talk a little bit about Jay Briscoe. As we all know by now, Jay passed away last Tuesday when he was driving, I guess it was to his daughter's practice, and a woman crossed over the median and crashed into them. Both Jay and the lady died. Um, Jay's kids, one was in critical condition. They're both, from what I hear, doing better. Better being an operative term. And something, it's just one of those things that it just stinks. And we sit here and sometimes we take a lot of things for granted. And I've been saying for a few years since the New Japan boom that a lot of times we take good wrestling for granted and we don't always stop and appreciate what we have. And the same way we don't really appreciate people sometimes until they've died. I mean, Jay Briscoe in the past week, you've heard a million stories about what a kind person he was and how much everybody loved him and all that stuff. And it's one of those things that you never really heard while he was still with us. And it kind of stinks that it takes a tragedy to find out more about a person. Um, I think I went to like 6 Ring of Honor shows. And the only one Jay wasn't at was a TV taping I went to in Providence, which was when he got stripped of the ROH title and they were doing a tournament for the vacant belt that Adam Cole eventually won. And so out of all the other shows I went to, I can honestly say that the Briscoes and Jay himself were in the best match of almost every show I've been to. Like, even if they weren't your style of wrestler, and I know everyone's got their own different thing. I'm not one of those people saying, "Oh, how can you not love everything ever?" It's like, no, there's some things you just don't like, and there's no shame in that game. But it's like Jay Briscoe and Mark Briscoe, especially when they were a team, it's like they were so fun and so energetic and just so completely different that, when I'd watch them live, it's like, holy crap, like this is otherworldly. And you don't always get that watching a TV or watching a pay-per-view or watching a DVD. A lot of times you really appreciate just how great someone is when you're sitting 5 feet away from them. And I met Jay Briscoe in 2013. I met both Briscoes in 2013. WrestleMania weekend. It was the day before Jay won the title from Kevin Steen. And I can tell you that both of them treated me with nothing but respect. I was wearing my Briscoe Brothers shirt. It was the one that kind of looks like a bottle of Jack Daniels on the front. And, you know, I know I saw Jay more than this one time. This isn't the only time he told me this, but I can't remember the other time. But he told me that this was his favorite Briscoe Brothers shirt, and it's just one of those things that always just sticks with you. Um, and you know, Jay's one of those people that people are going to miss, and it stinks that he's gone. And you know, I wish his family nothing but the best. Apparently, Mark is doing a lot better than you would think in this situation. And, just Godspeed, God rest, God bless. And, you know, if there is an afterlife, I hope, you're the good side and not the bad side, my friend. Um, it's almost impossible to talk about Jay without mentioning the famous tweet that he sent out that cost them their WWE tryout and in many ways cost them the chance to, move on to a bigger stage. Because, you know, WWE, like, I guess WWE did actually offer them a deal at one point, but, it was for NXT money, which they made more money, doing what they were doing. And then they were not allowed on TNT or TBS, which, okay, I'm just going to say this. And I said this on Twitter last week, and I got into a spat with a wrestler on Twitter about this. And I'm going to say it again. J.K. Rowling is a piece of shit. She is. If you are listening to the sound of my voice and somehow don't know this, J.K. Rowling is the most openly transphobic person that you can imagine. She is a turf in every sense of the word. If you don't know what that is, it means a trans exclusionary radical feminist. She she does not hide her vitriol for the transgender community. And she's done this for years. It's not like, oh, this is something new. And she just I accept, and it happens with a lot of people. You say something stupid, or you were young and stupid. It's like you learn, you grow, you evolve. It's not illegal to say something mean about trans people or LGBT people in general. However, when you don't use it as a chance to learn and you don't use it as a chance to evolve, and you're still stuck in your viewpoint, no matter how nasty it might be, it's like there's no good about you. There's no reason why you should be all over my television. And the fact is, you know, TNT and TBS, they have no problem promoting Harry Potter. Like I know the rights right now are under NBC Universal, I believe. And you know something? The rights for those movies are going to come up in a few years. And I will bet you my last dollar that TNT and TBS and Warner Brothers Discovery, you know damn well that they are going to bid on those movies. And if they get them, they're going to put them all over their show or all over their networks, no matter how horrible of a person J.K. Rowling is. And the fact is, J.K. Rowling is a billionaire who has money rolling in right now, and she will not stop because she looks at it as the fact that she continues to make all this money. She looks at it as, that she's in the right. Because if she wasn't in the right, she would be canceled. Or people wouldn't be subscribing to, the Harry Potter universe and all this other crap. And the part that angers me the most is I'm looking at my bookshelf. I'm looking at my Blu-rays. I have 7 Harry Potter books. I have 8 Harry Potter Blu-rays. And it just angers the frick out of me because I cannot open one book. I cannot watch a movie. And like I'm sure there are people, and I am not. I just want to say this right now. I am not. If you're sitting out there listening to this right now and you watch the Harry Potter universe movies or you read the books, I don't hold it against you. You do you. You can still be a good person and enjoy that. You can be transgender and enjoy it. You can be LGBT and enjoy that. I don't. And I can't because if I pick up that book, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix is an arm length away from me right now. And I want to grab it and throw it across my apartment and try to hit it into the garbage can. Because it just, I'll just say it doesn't bring me joy. It brings me the exact opposite of joy. It brings me rage, brings me anger, and the fact that, you know, I'm sure I really don't need to work this around, but y'all can figure this out. Jay Briscoe said one stupid thing. He learned his lesson. He donated money to LGBT charities. He never did that crap again. And it haunted him for the rest of his life. Mark Briscoe never said any of this stuff. And until tomorrow, as I'm taping this, he's never been allowed on the show either. What did he do? Like, I gotta say, I wasn't planning on ranting or raving about this. I was planning on mentioning it, but it's like just talking about it is just it like makes me angry. And J.K. Rowling can just F off. And she's certainly not gonna listen to this show. And if she has a podcast, I'm certainly not gonna listen to that. And these books can burn for all I care. And the fact is, I feel that, maybe I'm not in the right, but I feel there's a lot of people out there who agree with me. Because when I went to our local secondhand store the other day, you know what I saw in the bookshelves? I saw a lot of donated Harry Potter books. And yeah, it's possible a few of them are from people who just grew out of it, or, their bookshelves were a little too crowded or whatever. But you know something? It made me feel better that there are people out there who are like, I don't want this in my house. And I felt a little bit better about everything going on. So we're going to take a deep breath. We're going to inhale a little bit. We're going to exhale a little bit. And we're going to move on to our main topic because, believe it or not, me ranting about J.K. Rowling was not our main topic today. Our main topic, as mentioned at the top of the show, Mid-South Wrestling from February 18th, 1982, from the Irish McNeil Boys Club in Shreveport, Louisiana, 40 years, 11 months, and 1 week ago. These are, of course, all available on Peacock. I love Mid South, and when I mentioned this last week, or last week before, that KJ and I, KJ's not going to be back, and there's a lot of reasons why, and like KJ just really wasn't enjoying this, and I mentioned this to him. It's like he became a wrestling fan during, 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, right before the pandemic, when SmackDown started on Fox. Like the first thing he remembers watching is the Baron Corbin Roman Reigns dog food angle. Like, come on, really? And that's what made him a fan? Oh boy. But it's like the shows are too slow. They're the one thing other mentioned he mentioned was just the production values. And I mean, that's what old school wrestling is. And I know a lot of people listening to this, this is the kind of stuff a lot of people do like. And I would recommend giving it a listen, giving it a watch, excuse me. It's on Peacock. If you have Comcast, I think you still get Peacock for free. If you don't, I think it's $5. It's a pretty good deal at the end of the day. So Boyd Pierce is our host, and Bill Watts is this week's co-host. And Bill Watts is wearing a white jacket and tie that has like colored flowers on it at different points, but it doesn't even look like that. It looks like Jimmy Havoc's suit that he wore on AEW once with the blood splatter. Well, it looks like blood splattered all over it. Like that's what it kind of looks like. But let's go to the intro here. It's Boyd and Bill Watts, and it's going to actually lead into our first match. Let's go to that right now.
And welcome to Mid-South Wrestling Television Network. I'm your host, Boyd Pierce, and matchmaker Grizzly Smith with another great lineup, including outstanding tag team action, the Louisiana Heavyweight Champion, the Junkyard Dog, teaming up with Mississippi State Heavyweight Champion, Mr. Olympia, against the rugged duo of the Masked Grappler and Bruiser Bob Sweetan. The American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, is back, and he'll be in the ring against the Polish Prince, Ed Wiskowski. North American Champion Ted DiBiase is here. Alpha and Sika, the Samoan Warriors, the Mid-South Tag Team title holders. Indeed, a great program of champions, and one of the all-time greats is our guest commentator, Cowboy Bill Watts.
Well, thank you, Boyd Pierce. A lot's been happening. 2 weeks ago, in an unusual move, a surprise move, Skandar Akbar took over the unhappy Samoans. Ernie Ladd in an altercation was injured. He was operated on in Columbus, Georgia, at the orthopedic center there. And we don't know yet the extent of the damage to his knees. Mike George received an injury to the low back area, and he's still out of wrestling. So there's been a lot of injuries, a lot of changes, and a lot of excitement. Like you said, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes here today. Also, the Junkyard Dog, the Louisiana champion, and the best of Mississippi, Mr. Olympia, will combine against a tough team of the Grappler, a former North American champion, and Bruiser Bob Sweetan, a former Brass Knucks champion. So without any more, let's get right to the action in the ring.
Here's the introduction and Reeser Bout.
This event is for one fall with a 10-minute time limit. In the red corner at 234 pounds from Paris, Arkansas, Bill Ash. And in the blue corner at 236 pounds from American Samoa, Coco Samoa.
In the introduction, the boos going to Bill Ash and the cheers reserved for the South Pacific title holder, Coco Samoa. Jack Howe calls for the bell and the opening event underway. Bill?
Coco Samoa, fantastic athlete. Like you said, from America, Samoa. You know, it's a fine line that separates the actions and abilities of these athletes. You got the Alpha and Sika, the rough, tough Samoans. I don't want you to think that Coco Samoa is not any rougher or tougher. He definitely is. He just doesn't run around with a brother all the time, and apparently has a little happier outlook on life. But Samoans are warrior, and they're from a warlike dynasty and tribal ancestry, and they all have a lot of courage and a lot of pride in the fact that they will battle at any time.
So, as you hear, our first match here is Coco Samoa versus Bill Ash. It's the debut of Coco Samoa here in Mid-South Wrestling. And, I really should have researched, if there is a relation, but, it's a Samoan wrestling family. They're all going to claim to be related in one way or the other. Whether or not they are is, beyond me. We also heard an update both on Ernie Ladd's knee and Mike George's back. And so Ernie Ladd is going to be back soon. I forget if and when Mike George comes back. I'm pretty sure he does. I know Ernie Ladd's going to be back, I think he'll be back within a month, but I guess we'll see. So Bill Ash versus the South Pacific champion, Coco Samoa. Gotta say, Coco Samoa has not been shown on Young Rock yet. My guess is, even if he is part of the family, he's probably not gonna, be mentioned here on that show. But we do have a lot of audio here, and I do want to point out while I'm playing some of this, if you hear some heavy breathing, it's actually not me. Bill Watts is breathing heavily into the microphone during these shows, and that is what you hear. This match, we'll go through it here at the end. It goes 6 minutes, And Bill Watts spends very little time talking about the match. And let's go. We're going to start here talking about, some of his favorite subjects here. And we're going to dive right into this here while Coco Samoa and Bill Ash have their match in the background.
It was a lot of fun. I just got back from New Orleans, the Mardi Gras. If you've never been to Mardi Gras time in the Crescent City, it's something to see. And everybody thinks by Mardi Gras it's a lot of revelry, which it is, and a lot of partying, which it is. But also it's a tremendous event for the children. I always enjoy taking my children down. And Pepe Bruno, who is in the Endymion Parade group, is always a wonderful host and gets we always know where to be and to see the best of the parades. And the thing I think that makes it so exciting is that the parades are so orientated for participation by the people watching. And I know my kids got a great kick out of it. And this is the second time we've been, and I guess it's going to become an annual affair for us. We really enjoyed it. Also, Lindsey Williams' son, Lindsey was very proud. The chairman of the state of Louisiana Athletic Commission. His son took second in state at the amateur wrestling at high school, and he's a junior. He's not got another year. So, and the man that defeated him, I understand, was the outstanding wrestler in the state tournament. So, needless to say, Lindsey Williams is a proud parent.
So, yeah, basically anytime Bill is bored, he'll just start talking about anything and everything, whether or not it has anything to do with the matches. And I mean, we've heard this over in the past that, oh boy, I should warn you, and spoiler alert, we have an update on the Welcher Katsaboulis. That's coming up later on in the show, but we have not forgotten about our good friend, the Welcher. By the way, while you were listening to Bill Watts's dulcet tones, I was doing some research about Coco Samoa. He actually passed away in 2007 at the age of 61. And reading the always reliable Wikipedia under his personal life, he established a janitorial company to provide jobs to homeless people. He worked for motorcycle companies. He did spend time in prison after working as a money collector for a drug dealer. Then he became a preacher, visited other inmates to preach about Christianity. He estimates that he fathered 11 children by 9 different women. And he knew when he died that he had at least 5 sons and 3 daughters, which obviously does not add up to 11. He believes to have 31 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren. And it doesn't look like he's actually related to any of the more famous Samoans. It does say he is close to Jimmy Snuka, who he referred to as his brother. Again, Samoans and, them all saying they're all related to each other. Yep, let's, the match is going on here. It's super duper exciting. So let's go to our good friend here, Bill Watts, for his next cutaway.
In Lawton, in Oklahoma, for the 12 and under, the 3 divisions, and 12 and under, 10 and under, and 8 and under amateur wrestling for the kids. They had over 700 entries, and all these were the top 4 qualifiers out of the 4 different regionals. And I was very proud of my young son, Micah, and of course some of the kids he runs around with on that Bigsby team: Jason Stubbs, Dirk Rice, Mike Bodley, Scott Stapole. I could go on and on. There's a real great young program with the children at the Bigsby school system there.
Bill could just go on and on. Of course, the show is 41 minutes long, and he is the owner, promoter, etc. So if he wants to sit here and go on for, 43 minutes about amateur wrestling, Boyd Pierce is certainly not going to try to stop him. Bill Watts claims at one point here that Bill Ash has never been defeated on TV, which I guess is technically true because when we see Ash, he's normally in the expiration of time match at the end of the show. And then if you're tired of listening to talk about amateur wrestling, that's fine because he's going to actually start talking about, actual storyline stuff. We're going to take you to the next audio clip here. It's still during the same match, by the way. It shows you really how excited he is about Bill Ash versus Coco Samoa. the match that he, allowed to happen on his television. He's actually here to talk about the situation with Ernie Ladd and Skandor Akbar and everything going on there.
Ernie Ladd, after surviving the football wars and making all-pro for 3 different teams, I wonder if his career will be ended by Skandor Akbar's acquiescence of the huge Samoan Warriors and getting them back to Mid-South tag titles, and also that unknown factor, that man that weighed some 455 pounds that Akbar calls a one-man gang, but who is yet to reveal the man's identity. Or has he scheduled him in any matches yet in the Mid-South area? So I think everybody's wondering, and just how is Akbar going to use this weapon? I'm sure the general has a plan, because he's a pretty methodical person.
And so on that, you actually hear that they're talking about, the one-man gang. At the time, he didn't even have a name yet. They hadn't even decided on one-man gang. So it's kind of funny them referring to him as a one-man gang, but yet not having a name. As I mentioned, the match goes over 6 minutes. Bill talks about it for maybe 45 seconds, and Coco wins with a splash off the second rope. Coming back from commercial, we get thrown to an interview with where Reeser Bowden, our handy dandy ring announcer, is talking to General Skandor Akbar. Let's jump over to that right now, and I'll be right back.
Had a pre-taped conversation with the elusive Skandor Akbar, trying to pin him down as to his intent and his plans, and I am sure as to what his feelings were about Ernie Ladd and Mike George, 2 men that he may have ended their career, the future of the Samoans, and also the direction he plans to take that team, and about that 455-pound mystery. Let's listen to that now.
Ladies and gentlemen, General Skandor Akbar.
It can be said now, don't cross the general. Ernie Ladd, you took the Iron Sheik from me, and in return, I took wrestling from you. And you, Mike George, I've never liked you. You're a backstabbing traitor. Let it be known now that I intend to make a clean sweep in the Mid-South area. First, Mr. Olympia, Mississippi champion, Ted DeBusy, the North American champion. And last but not least, that mangy junkyard dog, that flea-bitten dog, that Louisiana title is just a matter of time. And oh, yes, there's another cancer on the horizon. And I'm talking about the American nightmare, Dusty Rhodes. And that's a cancer virus I intend to kill before it spreads in the Mid-South. So let it be known that I didn't warn you. If you're listening, beware, because it's the General's time. 1982 is career-ending time in the Mid-South, and the General has got it all.
And you heard it here, General Skandor Akbar.
Gotta say, Reeser Bowden is just tremendous. And, you don't see this, obviously, while you are listening. But it's like, Reeser's just, like, got this very steady look on his face, just looking back and forth between Skandor and the camera. And every so often, he'll just give the camera a little look. I like to think he did that when, Skandor Akbar's talking about Ted DeBusy. And that's one of those fun things you're going to see in Mid-South over the next few months, is that people cannot pronounce Ted DiBiase. And Skandor's here, as you heard, he's here. He wants to take all the championships. He wants to take, Mr. Olympia's title, Junkyard Dog's title. He wants Ted DiBiase's title, and he wants to get rid of Dusty Rhodes. And, we'll talk about Dusty here in a few minutes. He's on the show. And ultimately, it's a good promo. And, Skandor, sometimes doesn't get the appreciation that some of the other great managers have, even in this general Mid-South, Southeastern region, like in Texas with Gary Hart and all that. He doesn't really get all the attention that everyone else does, but he really does deserve it. He had a great voice. He cut a good promo, and, it was what it was. So we got up next the Mid-South Tag Team Champions, the Samoans. teaming up to take on Brian Blair and Frank Monty. Sika and Mid South, whoever's in charge of the graphics in Mid South, they don't know how to spell. And Sika, Sika, is spelled Sica, like he's Sika. And so Bill during this match is comparing the Samoans to Coco Samoa again. He continues to talk about the Ernie Ladd situation, and how Mike George's situation is concerning to JYD. This match is a lot more exciting than our opener was. The female fans are really into Brian Blair, and you can actually hear them screeching when they do almost anything. And they care a lot less about Frank Monty. And by a lot less, I mean they don't really care about Frank Monty at all. Sika, by the way, hits a Samoan drop that Frank Monty, and we've all seen a Samoan drop. You know, you're up on your shoulders, you fall backwards, you take a bump on your back, even on your side or what have you. Frank Monty managed to find a way to fall face first on the mat. And thankfully that was the finish, because God knows what would have happened next. Ted DiBiase, the North American champion, is out against a newcomer to the territory, Larry Higgins. And, if he's not a name that sounds familiar, he's in a much more famous match in a few weeks coming up. And there's actually a story behind it. But for now, he's not awful here. Higgins takes a turnbuckle into his shoulder instead of his back, and then he takes a bad bump off a clothesline. But ultimately, he was not the worst jobber ever, and DiBiase owns a figure 4. During the match, they announced that Ted will defend the North American title next week here on television against the Grappler. And Bill also plugs our next Superdome show. Once every 3 months or so, Mid-South run a big show at the New Orleans Superdome. And, it's February 18th when he's plugging this. So I'm just going to play this little clip here. It's 18 seconds long. So you can hear him plug it.
May the 1st, the next Superdome, the big extravaganza. People are already making reservations and getting their tickets now. They know one thing: when the Superdome comes about, it's a night to remember in the annals of wrestling.
And, I looked at the card for that Superdome, and a lot happens in the next, 2.5, 3 months. Sometimes, like, especially when you watch, like, say, WWE these days, if you watch a WWE show from 3 months ago, it doesn't always feel like anything has happened since. This time, like, you can definitely see that things have changed since. Bob Roop versus Rick Ferrara next. Um, and the big news of this match, because, there's nothing notable in this match. Bob Roop wins with a shoulder breaker. But Bill talks about the expansion of the Mid-South territory. They have recently purchased the Oklahoma territory. And, he's going to be talking about that and their expansion into the West Coast.
It's going to be exciting for wrestling back in Tulsa, my hometown. We've been out of that market for some time, and now Mid-South is back in Tulsa. KJRH Channel 2 television. Everybody anticipating and looking forward to coming to the Tulsa Assembly Center on May the 3rd. I know all the young kids tournaments I went to with my 2 younger sons, Eric, who wrestled in the junior high division, and Micah, who was in the 12 and under, and my older son Joel, even at his swim meets. They all ask, Cowboy, one of the top stars, the names that we're watching right now, when are they going to come back to Tulsa? Well, it's on the way. San Diego building and growing, a tremendous group of fans out there, and now the Los Angeles area, the Spanish-speaking networks. It's exciting. 1982 could be one of the most interesting years ever.
He's right there. It does end up being one of the most interesting years ever. Actually, 1982 is when Vince buys the WWF from his dad, But that obviously is a completely different company. I cut Bill off there before he could just start listing off towns and cities they're already in. And in an effort to keep you all from falling asleep, I just didn't want to make y'all listen to that. He's just New Orleans, Tulsa, Lafayette, etc., etc. If you really want to hear it, queue up Peacock about 23 minutes into the show. But I mean, come on. If I don't want to have to play it for you, I doubt you'll really want to listen to it. So then from there, we got our tag team main event match. It was Louisiana champion Junkyard Dog teaming up with the Mississippi champion Mr. Olympia versus the Grappler and Bruiser Bob Sweetan. The Grappler from Parts Unknown. I always wonder where they send the checks to people who live in Parts Unknown. I think the accountant at Mid South is like, "Hey, MFer, tell me where you live or you're not getting paid." That kind of thing. That probably doesn't happen, does it? No. The crowd was literally dancing to Junkyard Dog's Another One Bites the Dust. And I don't mean they were figuratively dancing. I mean there were people literally dancing in the stands to Junkyard Dog's theme music. And that is definitely not something you see these days in an era where, people sing along to the song, and even when it's an instrumental like Seth Rollins, they'll, uh, you know, they'll sing, for lack of a better word, along with the beat of the song. You don't see people dancing to it. And, the best you ever got was when Fandango was over for 5 minutes. You'd get people doing the pointing to the air thing, but it's like, it's just not the same. And you watch these old shows, you know, fans had fun at these shows. And that's not something you see a lot these days, where it's like, if you watch a wrestling show, like, it doesn't matter if the lights are up or down, because like the crowd just sits there and stares. They make some noise here and there, but they just sit there and stare. You never feel like they're really having fun while at the show. Uh, Dog is upset that Mike George has been injured by the Samoans. They pointed out that fans assumed that Mike George would turn on the dog, and he didn't. I mean, personally, I assumed Mike George would turn on Junkyard Dog. I assumed wrong. Watts starts telling us another one of his mythical conversations with someone else, as opposed to something else, the name of a awesome podcast you should listen to. Oh, wait, you already are. Anyway, it's Bill Watts having one of his many mythical conversations uh, with other people. And in this case, a fan was telling him that he doesn't like other territories because wrestlers in other territories are either out of shape or they're too old to be wrestling, or in theory, both. The hilarious thing is this is a match with Junkyard Dog in it, and the next match is a match with Dusty Rhodes in it. There really wasn't much in the way of heat. Like, honestly, Junkyard Dog and Mr. Olympia were pretty much in control for the entire match. Mr. Olympia put the grappler in a sleeper. Sweet Hand came in and thrusted him in the throat, but Olympia basically no-sold it and made his own comeback. He tagged out, and Dog pinned Sweet Hand with the thumb. So the champions are victorious. What is next for both of them, I guess? Up next, we get Dusty Rhodes versus Ed Wiskowski. Something tells me that Ed will not give Dusty the Crippler, which, for those of you who don't remember or are new to our show, the Crippler is this move where Ed Wiskowski's opponents are sitting on the mat, sitting upright on the mat, and Ed jumps up in the air and splashes them on the back of their head and neck. KJ dubbed it the Crippler, and I can't think of a better name for it. All I can think is, if I was sitting there and that MF did that to me, people are going to believe that wrestling is real, dude, because the crap will have hit the fan. What doesn't get mentioned, and I'm not sure if they're going to do it in the future here, but it hasn't been mentioned here in a bit, is that if you remember about 6 weeks ago, they announced that Mid South would be the home booking office for Dusty and how he's going to be around a lot more often these days. Obviously, a lie. Ed at one point does a flying knee into the turnbuckles, which is not the best idea. So we all know Dusty Rhodes. He's a white guy who stole Muhammad Ali's promo style. And, you know, back in the day, we would say, and I apologize, just like I'm going to try to 2023 this statement in, but we would say that Dusty Rhodes was acting African American. And Bill Watts is here to try to say that without saying that.
He says he's the only man with blue eyes that's got that much soul. He says he got as much soul as a junkyard dog. The only man with blue eyes with that kind of soul.
Yes, he's the only guy with blue eyes who has the soul of the junkyard dog. I wonder what that means. So finish here. Ed goes for a mid-rope splash. So, what works for Coco Samoa doesn't always work for someone the caliber of Ed Wiskowski here. However, when he goes for his big mid-rope splash, Dusty gets his knees up, and Dusty wins with the elbow drop. And you thought that finishers were a lot better and believable back in the day. So now that we had our main events out of the way, it's time for our expiration of time match, because this show, I know you've had to listen to Bill Watts for like 30 of the minutes he's talked so far, but this show went pretty quickly. And so we have Paul Orndorff versus Tony Torres. It's our first standby match. However, it's also our last standby match. Thus, it's the expiration of time match with 5 minutes left of the show. Now for the big update. You might recall, when we were doing these shows on the regular, Bill Watts would just randomly start complaining about this man in Jackson, Mississippi named Cat Sabulis, and how he was a welcher. And we followed the sad saga of the welcher, and our sad saga has come to an end. And here with an update on Cat Sabulis is our good friend, Cowboy Bill Watts. Bill, take it away.
I've had a lot of inquiry out of the Jackson, Mississippi area about welcher Cat Sabulis, and I haven't heard anything more about him. Seems to have faded in the woodwork. There's also a Cat Sabulis in that same area, that man who ably runs a very fine company called Cat Sabulis Tile Company, a well-known figure in that town. He and the welcher are no kin. No, that Cat Sabulis of Cat Sabulis Tile Company, close personal friend of mine and Jack Curtis. He would never do anything like that. He's a fine man. He's got a tremendous family, Weta, his lovely wife, and his 2 children, and I've enjoyed many wonderful times with him. And this other person must be of some distant kin, but there are no similarity between the two.
Yeah. So Bill Watts is claiming that there is a second man named Cat Sabulis. And that Cat Sabulis, oh, by the way, both Cat Sabulises live in Jackson, Mississippi. Pardon me. Both live in Jackson, Mississippi. Both are. Sorry about that. Both Cat Sabulises are in Jackson, Mississippi. Both are known by both Bill and Jack Curtis. However, one is this awful welcher, and the other is a fine, upstanding gentleman who would never do such a thing. He owns a tile repair store, even, as opposed to the auto store owned by the bad Katsoulis. Let's be honest here, what really happened. Katsoulis got tired of having his name run through the mud on television that's being spread across Louisiana, Mississippi. And I have no proof of this, but I mean, this is the most obvious, thing. He went to his lawyer, fired off a cease and desist letter, and Bill Watts had to walk it back with his tail between his legs. And Bill Watts does not like walking things back with his tail between his legs, but that's what he had to do here. So most expiration of time matches tend to end in a time limit draw. This one did not. Orndorff won with the figure 4. They announced that next week, in addition to the title match we had that was announced earlier, next week Junkyard Dog and Brian Blair will team up. I wrote to take on the Killer Bees. That is wrong, obviously. I think they're wrestling the Samoans. Crap, I don't know now. I'm pretty sure they're wrestling the Samoans. If somehow they do wrestle the Killer Bees, that's going to be one amazing show right there. Tune in if for nothing else. Anyway, in 2 weeks, Iron Mike Sharp is going to be here. And for those of you who only remember Iron Mike Sharp as the WWF jobber from the 80s and 90s, he's a lot better than he was ever given in the WWF. And it's kind of amazing that he never really got more than he did. But he's going to be here in 2 weeks. In 3 weeks, Dick Murdoch, which, if you remember, and I don't know what happened, maybe they just taped a whole bunch of shows in one night here. But if you remember, Dick Murdoch was announced for this week's show. So, yeah. And then the show ends with the announcement that next week, the guest commentator will be Stardust himself, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, baby. Live and in public, if you will. And it's always funny because Dusty's one of those people that when you think about it, you're like, I bet he'd be a pretty good commentator. He's got the rap, he's got the charisma. He really isn't that good at commentary. And if you need any proof of this, just go back and watch those old WCW pay-per-views where he would be doing it with Shivani and Heenan. And that's all you would ever need to see. All right, so there's 2 things left to talk about, and I'd rather end the show on a positive note. So I'm going to talk about a little bit of drama going on this week in my life. I don't want to get into it. I know I'm purposely bringing this up and then saying I don't want to get into it. But I went through a lot of drama this week, and this weekend specifically. And the one thing this weekend has taught me that even during all this drama is that I have an amazing group of friends. Just a fantastic group of people. And I really hope those of you out there listening that when you're having a tough time and there's just something going on, that you also have just a fantastic support system, whether it's friends, whether it's family, whether it's a little bit of both. There are so many people that helped me, especially yesterday. Had a lot of a roller coaster afternoon, and there's like a dozen, 15 people up there. They know who they are, and they were just fantastic, amazing people. I will name drop my friends over at AEW Heels. They were there for me too. If you're a female wrestling fan, you're listening to this right now, subscribe to AEW Heels. We have monthly Zoom calls. It's actually, as I'm recording this, there's actually one this coming Friday with Aubrey Edwards, Leva Bates, Vicky Guerrero, Amanda Hoover. They're all fantastic people. And, I'll tell you flat out, and, now I'm off on another tangent. Aubrey Edwards is legitimately like one of the nicest people ever. And don't believe the crap you read about her on social media. And like Leva Bates is amazing, and Amanda Hoover is great. Vicky Guerrero, it's like every time I ever talk to Vicky, I am left feeling like she's my best friend in the world and that we're just gonna go hang out afterwards. And that's not what happens. But that's what I'm always left feeling like. 'Cause she always makes you feel like, you're a good person and that you're special. And, amazing how this thing went off on another tangent. But I just wanted to say that here for those who don't know that about them. And so let's finish up with the fun stuff here. We're going to finish up with our favorite segment. It's Weird News of the Week, presented by Nobody. Nobody, the company that sponsors nothing. And today, yes, ladies and gentlemen, in case you remembered our teaser from the beginning of the show, New York Animal Shelter seeks home for fire breathing demon. An animal shelter in New York is seeking a home for a dog described as a terror, a fire breathing demon, and a whole jerk. The Niagara SPCA said 26-pound Ralphie has been adopted twice but was returned twice due to his bad behavior. At first glance, he's an adorable, highly sought after young dog. People should be banging down our doors for him. We promise you that won't be the case. Ralphie is a terror in a somewhat small package, the shelter said in a Facebook post. The shelter said Ralphie's most recent owners took him home with the intention of training him. 2 weeks into this new home, and he was surrendered to us because he, and I quote, annoys our older dog. What that actually meant was Ralphie is a fire breathing demon and will eat our dog, the post said. He's a whole jerk, not even half. Everything belongs to him. If you dare test his ability to possess the things, wrath will ensue. If you show a moment of weakness, prepare to be exploited, the shelter warned. The SPCA said prospective owners who think they can handle training Ralphie should get in touch if you're that crazy. That sounds like a challenge almost. And, of course, when he went to the Niagara area, looking for a challenge, give them a call and try to adopt Ralphie here. It's an incredibly cute looking dog. And if I actually like dogs and lived near Niagara, New York, I would definitely consider it. But anyway, that's going to do it for this show. I am going to be back this Saturday night with a post Royal Rumble show. So go Rhea Ripley, go Bailey, go Sonya Deville. And, until then, thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you again then.